Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rempillo Rose, and I will discuss about Muslim empires. Muslim empires. These empires are sometimes referred to as gunpowder empires. Why? The rules of all three great Muslim empires of this era based their authority on Islam. They based their power to strong armies, advanced technologies, and loyal administrative officers. Each made successful use of gunpowder, cannon, and musket in defeating adversaries wedded more to old technologies and tactics such as castle longbows. These three Muslim empires were all beat by Turkic and not Arab nomadic people. Three of the great empires of history, the Ottomans in Turkey, the Safavid in Persia, and the Mongols in India, emerged in the Muslim world between the 14th and the 18th centuries. The largest and the longest ruling empires in history is the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman built a vast empire. The Ottomans established a Muslim empire that combined many cultures and lasted for more than 600 years. Many modern societies from Algeria to Turkey had their origins under Ottoman rule. Setting the stage, by 13,000 the Byzantine Empire was declining and the Mongols had destroyed the Turkish Seljuk kingdom of Rum. Anatolia was inhabited mostly by descendants of nomadic Turks. These militaristic people had a long history of invading other countries. Loyal to their own groups, they were not united by a strong central power. A small Turkish state occupied land between the Byzantine Empire and that of the Muslim. From this place, a strong leader would emerge to unite the Turks into what eventually would become an immense empire stretching across three continents. Turks moved into Byzantium. Many Anatolian Turks saw themselves as Ghazis, or warriors for Islam. They formed military societies under the leadership of an emir, a chief commander, and followed a strict Islamic code of conduct. They raided the territories of people who lived on the frontiers of the Byzantine Empire. Osman established a state. The most successful Ghazi was Osman. People in the West called him Ottoman and named his followers Ottomans. Osman built a small Muslim state in Anatolia between 13,000 and 1326. His successor expanded it by buying land, forming alliance with some emirs, and conquering others. The Ottomans' military success was largely based on the use of gunpowder. They replaced their archers on horseback with musket-carrying foot soldiers. They also were among the first people to use cannons as weapons of attack. Even heavily walled cities fell to an all-out attack by the Turks. The second Ottoman leader, Akran I, was Osman's son. He felt strong enough to declare himself Sultan, meaning overlord or one with power. And in 1361, the Ottomans captured Adrianople, the second most important city in the Byzantine Empire. A new Turkish empire was on the rise. The Ottomans acted wisely toward the people they conquered. They ruled through local officials appointed by the Sultan and often improved the lives of the peasant. Most Muslims have to serve in Turkish armies and make contribution required for by their faith. Non-Muslim did not have to serve in the army but had to pay for their exemption with a small tax. Timur the Lameholt's expansion, the rise of the Ottoman Empire was briefly interrupted in the early 14,000 by a rebellious warrior and conqueror from Samarkand in Central Asia. Permanently injured by an arrow in the leg, he was called Timur Ilang or Timur the Lame. Europeans called him Tamerlane. Timur burned the powerful city of Baghdad in present-day Iraq to the ground. He crushed the Ottoman forces at the Battle of Ankara in 1402. This defeat halted the expansion of their empire. Mehmed II conquers Constantinople. Murad's son Mehmed II, or Mehmed the Conqueror, achieved the most dramatic feat in Ottoman history. By the time Mehmed took power in 1451, the ancient city of Constantinople had shrunk from a population of 1 million to a mere 50,000. Although it controlled no territory outside its walls, it is still dominated the Bosporus Strait. Controlling their waterway meant that it could be choke off traffic between the Ottomans, territories in Asia and in the Balkans. Ahmad II decided to face this situation head on. Give me Constantinople. He thundered shortly after taking power at age 21. Then in 1453, he launched his attack. Mehmed's Turkish forces began firing on the city walls with mighty cannons. One of these was a 26-foot gun that fired 1,200-pound boulders. A chain across the Golden Horn between the Bosporus Strait and the Sea of Marmara kept the Turkish fleet out of the city harbor. Finally, one night, Mehmed army tried a daring tactic. They dragged 70 ships over a hill on the grease runners from the Bosporus to the harbor. Now, Mehmed army was attacking Constantinople from two sides. The city held out for over 7 weeks, but the Turks finally found a break in the wall and entered the city. So, mapapansin niyo po doon sa picture, nandun po sa bandang kanan yung Constantinople. Then, dun po banda sa may baba niya yung nakaporma po yung mga cannon. Then, dun po banda sa may, yung parts ng may water, yung po yung Sea of Marmara. Naglagay po si Mehmed doon ng 70 ship. So, nagkaroon siya ng daring tactic. So, inaatake niya to sa dalawang paraan. Then, after a week, napansin niya na nagkaroon na ng butas yung wall. So, kaya napasok niya yung city. Mehmed the Conqueror, as he was now called, proved to be an able ruler as well as magnificent warrior. He opened Constantinople to new citizens of many religions and backgrounds. Jews, Christian, and Muslim, Turks and non-Turks all flowed in. They helped rebuild the city which was now called Istanbul. Mehmed the Conqueror. The conquest of Constantinople, subsequently renamed Istanbul, was the most important event of his sultanate. Mehmed accomplished this at the age of 21. Other notable military achievements by Mehmed included the conquest of additional territory in Albania, Bosnia, and Serbia. Mehmed was also known for the sincerity of his faith. His facility with foreign languages, he knew perhaps as many as eight, and his interest in education and the arts. So kung makikita nyo po dun sa may picture, ayan po yung kanyang tubra, signature or calligraphy seal. On a less positive note, Mehmed was notorious for his cruelty. So, nakikita nyo po yung map ng Ottoman Empire. So, makikita nyo po doon yung sa may bandang Black Sea. Di ba meron po nakalagay doon sa may Anatolia na Istanbul. So, yun na po yung Constantinople. Pinalitan siya at pinangalanan siyang Istanbul. Ottoman take Islam, holy cities. Mehmed grandson Selim the Grim came to power in 1512. He was an effective sultan and a great general. In 1514, he defeated the Safavids of Persia at the Battle of Chaldiran. Then he swept south through Syria and Palestine and into North Africa at the same time that Cortes was toppling the Aztec Empire in the Americas. Selim Empire took responsibility for Mecca and Medina. Finally, he took Cairo, the intellectual center of the Muslim world. The one great civilization of Egypt had become just another province in the growing Ottoman Empire. So, makikita niyo po sa picture sa bandang kaliwa, yun po yung Topkapi Palace. So, doon naman po sa kanan, yun po yung Cannon Gate. Yung Topkapi, built by Mehmet in Constantinople. This palace served not only as the Sultan's primary residence but also as the administrative hub of the Ottoman Empire. It is a sprawling complex full of many different buildings and country yards. The main section of the palace is the Sultan residence called the harem. Traditionally, the harem was off limit to all except the Sultan, his wives and concubines, his non-adult children, other female relatives, and his bodyguards, normally eunuchs. The Queen Mother often ruled this household. The Ottoman religious policy. This policy is somewhat complicated. Officially, the Ottoman Turks were Sunni Muslim. However, the Ottomans were essentially a military castle, ruling over significant religious and ethnic minority populations. Even within Islam, there were differences with various groups, Sufis and Shiites. Sufis were mystics, twirling dervishes, member of a Sufi religious order who often express their religious form via trances. A further complication ensues from the fact that the Sultan was also Caliph, beginning with the Salem Dagrim and his conquest of Mecca and Medina. Non-Muslim subject population were often arranged in millets or religious communities. These millets enjoy a certain amount of autonomy in the Ottoman system. They had their own leaders, in the case of the Greek Orthodox, a patriarch, and their own laws regarding marriage. They were usually obliged to pay a special head tax or jizya. This tax sometimes took the form of divshirm, in which Christian families in the Balkans or Anatolia were forced to part with some of their male children, who then converted to Islam and later became Janissaries or elite troops. The role of slave in Ottoman Empire was very important. First, they often came from non-Muslim subject population and prisoners of war. Number two, female were recruited to serve as concubines and even as wives for the sultans. Males formed the bulk of the sultan elite troops or janissaries. Four, slaves also served as bureaucrat and administrator, sometimes even in the top rank of the government, example as vizier, wazir or grand vizier, wazir or prime minister, katulad ni Ibrahim Pasha. Note, in contrast to slaves elsewhere, including those in the Free Civil War South, Ottoman slaves were never used to work or farm or plantation. Suleiman the Lawgiver. Suleiman the Magnificent, aka Kanuni, or the Lawgiver. Undoubtedly the most important sultan, he expanded the Ottoman holdings into North Africa and Europe. He conquered much of Hungary. For instance, his forces tried to seize Vienna also but were stopped at its gate in 1529. Later, in 1536, Suleiman becomes allied with France. Domestically, Suleiman is remarkable for his effort to codify Ottoman law for his encouragement of cultural activities. The only major blemish on his reign is his decision to condemn to death his two most humble sons on suspicion of plotting against him, which meant that a notable less qualified son, Selim Dassault, succeeded Suleiman as Sultan. Suleiman the Lawgiver, the Ottoman Empire didn't reach its peak size and grandeur until the reign of Selim's son. Suleiman I, Suleiman came to throne in 1520 and ruled for 46 years. His own people called him Suleiman. He was known in the West through as Suleiman the Magnificent. This title was a tribute to the splendor of his court and to his cultural achievements. The empire reaches its limit. Suleiman was a superb military leader. He conquered the important European city of Belgrade in 1521. The next year, Turkish forces captured the island of Rhodes in the Mediterranean and now dominated the whole eastern Mediterranean. Applying their immense naval power, the Ottomans captured Tripoli on the coast of North Africa. They continued conquering peoples along the North African coastline. Although the Ottomans occupied only the coastal cities of North Africa, they managed to control trade routes to the interior of the continent. In 1526, Suleiman advanced into Hungary and Austria, throwing Central Europe in a panic. Suleiman armies then pushed to the outskirts of Vienna, Austria, reigning from Istanbul. Suleiman had waged war with Central Europeans, North Africans, and Central Asians. He had become the most powerful monarch on earth. Only Charles the Habsburg Empire in Europe came close to revealing his power. Highly structured social organization, binding the Ottoman Empire together in a workable social structure, Suleiman's crowning achievement. The massive empire required an efficient government structure and social organization. Suleiman created a law code to handle both criminal and civil actions. He also simplified and limited taxes and systematized and reduced government bureaucracy. These changes improved the lives of most citizens and helped earn Suleiman the title of lawgiver. The Sultan 20,000's personal slave stopped the palace bureaucracy. The slaves were acquired as part of a policy called Devshirme. Under the Devshirme system, the Sultan army drafted boys from the people of conquered Christian territories. The army educated them, converted to Islam, and trained them as soldiers. An elite forces of 30,000 soldiers, known as Janissaries, was trained to be loyal to the Sultan only. The superb discipline made them the heart of the Ottoman war machine. In fact, Christian families sometimes bribe officials to take their children into the Sultan's service because the brightest one could rise to higher government posts or military positions. As a Muslim, Sulaiman was required to follow Islamic law. In accordance with Islamic law, the Ottomans granted freedom of worship to other religious communities, particularly to Christians and Jews. They treated these communities as millets or nations. They allowed each millet to follow its own religious laws and practices. The head to the millets reported to the Sultan and his staff. This system kept conflict among people and the various religion of a minimum. So kung mapapansin niyo po sa picture, ayan po yung Sinan's Mosque. Sinan Mosque of Suleiman in Istanbul is the largest mosque in the Ottoman Empire. Suleiman also supported the construction of many new mosques, hospitals, schools, etc. An important collaborator was the architect Sinan, originally an Armenian Christian. Yung mapapansin niyo po sa picture, ayan po yung the Hagia Sophia. Hagia Sophia Grand Mosque, Turkey's Hagia Sophia is a mosque and major cultural historical site in Istanbul, Turkey. The cathedral was a Greek Orthodox church from 360 AD until the conquest of Constantinople by Ottoman Empire in 1453. It served as a mosque until 1335 when it became a museum in 2020. The site once again became a mosque. So next picture, ayan po yung Blue Mosque, Istanbul. The Blue Mosque in Istanbul, also known by its official name, the Sultan Ahmed Mosque, is an Ottoman-era historical imperial mosque located in Istanbul, Turkey. A functioning mosque, it also attract large number of tourist visitors. It was constructed between 1609 and 1616 during the rule of Ahmed I. Its collection contains Ahmed Tomb, a madrasa, and a hospice. Hand-painted blue tiles adorn the mosque's interior walls, and at night the mosque is bathed in blue as light frame. The mosque's five main domes, six minarets, and eight secondary domes. It sits next to the Hagia Sophia, the principal mosque of Istanbul until the Blue Mosque constructed and another popular tourist sites. The Blue Mosque was included in the UNESCO World Heritage Site list in 1985 under the name of Historic Areas of Istanbul. The empire declines slowly. Despite Suleiman's magnificent social and cultural achievement, the Ottoman Empire was losing ground. Suleiman killed his eldest son and drove another into exile. His third son, the incompetent Selim II, inherited the throne. Suleiman set the pattern for later sultan to gain and hold power. It became customary for each new sultan to have his brothers strangled. So the sultan would then keep his son prisoner in the harem, cutting them off from education and contact with the world. This practice produced a long time of fake sultan who eventually brought ruin on the empire. However, the Ottoman Empire continued to influence the world into the early 20th century. After Sulaiman, the Ottoman Empire remained strong for another 150 years. Then it began a slow but seemingly unstoppable decay. The causes of its decline were severalfold. First, the ability of individual sultans to rule declined. Second, Western Europe and Russia grew more powerful and began to challenge the Ottoman state militarily. Number three, the bureaucracy became corrupt and local officials retained increasing amount of revenue for their own purposes. Four, the intense conservatism of the Janissaries and religious leaders blocked adoption of new technology and other reforms necessarily to counter various internal and external threats. And number five, nationalism, Arab Greek Kurdish, undercut support for the central government and led, in some cases, to new countries. Next is the Safavid Empire. The Safavid Empire produced a rich and complex blended culture in Persia. Throughout the course of world history, cultures have interacted with each other. Often such interaction has resulted in the mixing of different cultures in new and exciting ways. This process is referred to as cultural blending. The Safavid Empire, a Shiite Muslim dynasty that ruled in Persia between the 16th and 18th centuries, provide a striking example of how interaction among people can produce a blending of cultures. This culturally diverse empire drew from the traditions of Persia, Ottomans, and Arabs. Patterns of cultural blending. Each time a culture interacts with another, it is exposed to ideas, technologies, foods, and ways of life not exactly like its own. Continental crossroads, trade routes, ports, and the borders of countries are places where cultural blending commonly begins. Societies that are able to benefit from cultural blending are those that are open to new ways and are willing to adapt and change. The blended ideas is spread throughout the culture and produce a new pattern of behavior. Cultural blending has several basic causes. So, what are the causes of cultural blending? Cultural change is most often prompted by one or more of the following four activities. First is the migration, pursuit of religious freedom or conversion, trade, and conquest. The blending that contributed to the culture of the Ottomans, which you just read about in section number 1, depended on some of these activities surrounded by the people of Byzantium. The others were motivated to win territory for their empire. The Ottoman Empire, located on a major trading route, created many opportunities for contact with different cultures. Suleiman's interest in learning and culture prompted him to bring the best foreign artists and scholars to his court. They brought new ideas about art, literature, and learning to the empire. Result of cultural blending. Cultural blending may lead to change in language, religion, style of government, the use of technology, and military tactics. These changes often reflect unique aspects of several cultures. For example, language. Sometimes the written characters of one language are used in another, as in the case of written Chinese characters used in the Japanese language in the Safavid Empire. The language spoken was Persian, but also the area converted to Islam. A significant number of Arabic words appeared in the Persian language. Second is the religion and ethical systems. Buddhism is spread throughout Asia, yet the Buddhism practiced by the Tibetans is different from Japanese Zen Buddhism. Next is the style of government. The concept of democratic government is spread to many areas of the globe. Although the basic principles are similar, it is not practiced exactly the same way in each country. Next is the racial or ethnic blending. One example in the mestizo people mixed European and Indian ancestry who live in Mexico. And last, the arts and architecture. Cultural style may be incorporated or adapted into art of architecture. For example, Chinese artistic elements are found in Safavid Empire tiles and carpets, as well as in European paintings. The Safavid built an empire. Conquest and ongoing cultural interaction fueled the development of the Safavid Empire. Originally, the Safavid were members of an Islamic religious brotherhood named after their founder, Safi al-Din. In the 5th century, the Safavid aligned themselves with the branch of Islam. The Safavid were also squeezed geographically between the Ottomans and Uzbek tribes people and the Mongol Empire. To protect themselves from these potential enemies, the Safavid concentrated on building a powerful army. Ismail conquers Persia. The Safavid military became a force to reckon with in 1499. A 12-year-old named Ismail began to seize most of what is now Iran. 2 years later, he completed the task. To celebrate his achievement, he took the ancient Persia title of Shah or King. He also established Shia Islam as the state religion. Ismail became a religious tyrant, and a citizen who did not convert to Shi'ams was put to death. Ismail destroyed the Sunni population of Baghdad in his confrontation with the Ottomans. Their leader, Selim the Grim, later ordered the execution of all Shia in the Ottoman Empire. As many as 14,000 died. Their final face-off took place at the Battle of Chaldiran in 1540. Using artillery, the Ottomans pounded the Safavid into defeat. Another outcome of the battle was to set the border between the two empires. It remained the border today between Iran and Iraq. Ismail Santashmap learned from the Safavid defeat at the Chaldiran. He adopted the use of artillery with his military forces. He expanded the Safavid Empire up the Caucasus Mountain northeast of Turkey and brought Christian under Safavid rule. Tashmap laid the groundwork for the golden age of the Safavids. The continuation of Safavid Empire will be discussed by Mr. Mark Tantoy.